turning off all notifications.
Whew.
Because this is an important episode, David, of the podcast.
Historical, Doug, historical. It's never happened before. We've never done a podcast on the morning of the play-in tournament
I'm
for
so
the NBA. It's
excited.
never happened.
I'm so excited to be playing in.
I think we're the first. Maybe the first ones to do this.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about. I never told you my idea for the to save the All-Star Game Skills Challenge.
I need it. I want to hear it.
I definitely want to get to that.
Yep. I wanted to dive into some of the vitriol I've seen over the recent week, Doug.
Whoa,
about
you've
just
seen vitriol?
Well, Gordon Hayward continues to take shots from the outfield. The people are angry because he's not playing.
He's not taking shots.
Right,
he's
exactly.
Taking shots because he's not taking shots.
And you see the Hornets are something like 9-19 without him, which they could have used him last week. We can talk about that because they sure could have used him in some of those games.
Yeah, let's talk about what's wrong with the Hornets. I mean, they're currently on a pretty big losing streak heading into. Are you ready to say they backed into the play-in? Like you wouldn't say it last. Save your answer. We're only in the pre-show. I'm finally moved in. I forgot to close my closet door, so you're getting an inside look at the equipment closet. I don't have everything hung, but I got the basketball jersey thing hung. I've got Kemba there in a Bobcats jersey. He's up there. So more to come on the wall, for sure. Oh, and of course, praise be to the hat cam. All right, let's do it. This is not a Serious Hornets podcast. I'm Doug Branson. I'm joined, as always, by my friend David Walker. David, how are you?
I'm good, Doug. I'm excited. This is historic. This has never happened before. We've never had 4 teams vying for 2 spots in a makeshift NBA playoff play-in tournament sponsored by State Farm on TNT and ESPN.
Yeah, and I think it's we'll talk. I'd love to get your thoughts on just how good of an idea this is. I feel like the consensus has built among the commentariat that this is a great idea, but amongst players, coaches, and some owners, they're not totally in love with this idea. So I want to get your thoughts on that in just a moment. But let me just say, if you're listening to us on the podcast version of the show, we are on YouTube. We go live usually around 10 o'clock in the morning on Tuesdays. If you have a chance to catch us live, you can comment. I'll have the chat pulled up here if you want to drop a couple of chatolas our way. We will read them on the show. You can find that link on our Patreon page to the YouTube page, patreon.com/HornetsPod. That's also where you can support the show. Every dollar contributed matters to what we're doing here. It helps us produce this show for you every week. So check that out, patreon.com/HornetsPod. And thank you to everyone that has contributed so far. We've had a great response. So we really love that. And we really love doing this show. And if you haven't listened to the podcast version, you can find that on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Just search This Is Not a Serious Hornets Podcast. Got a lot to get to in this one. The Hornets lose against Washington in the season finale. They lose in the previous game to the New York Knicks. That finds the Hornets now in the 10th seed in the play-in tournament. They are going to need to win 2 road games in order to continue their playoff journey. But before we get to that, I just want, David, your quick thoughts on if you're excited about the play-in tournament, if you feel like it made a difference in terms of your engagement level with the end of the season.
Well, it's funny because people were saying, the Charlotte-Washington game and the Warriors-Memphis game would have meant the same had the tournament not be in place, right? I mean, it was still a race for 8th for a spot in the playoffs. But I think this tournament, kind of the unknown, did give people a little more interest, at least for me. I was excited for that jostling of position. And maybe it's just like the tournament format. Maybe it's just the I don't know, maybe the excitement of having several one and done scenarios. But of course, we were locked in. I mean, we were going to be always be locked in. I'd be curious to see kind of how um, the broader fan or not the everyday NBA fan reacts to this or the viewership. I assume it'd be good, but I mean, look, the NBA got Lakers Warriors on the West Side. That you couldn't ask for more than that. And I don't know, there's a reason Charlotte Indy got the NBA TV treatment tonight at 6:30, even though they are on TNT. So
Yeah, we got another national TV game. That's nice.
there you go.
And
All
now
right.
that's the thing. I'm glad the NBA is treating this play-in tournament right, because
Seriously, yeah.
had this been on NBA TV, I would have been displeased. I would have been like, okay, then why are we doing this? If we're just going to throw this Pacers Hornets game on NBA TV, then I'm not sure why we went through all of this to get to this moment. But I think you're right. I think for the average fan, just having some star players still matter is going to make a significant difference. So when Washington eventually plays Boston in the late game, you're going to have Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal still involved. You've got LaMelo Ball still involved. So they're able to kind of put the spotlight on some stars that may be stuck on teams that wouldn't normally have an opportunity to showcase themselves in the postseason. So I think that will help the average fan. And I think overall, yeah, I was more engaged. There were scenarios. You've got the one and done kind of pressure. We're going to see how that affects what happens. I think it could honestly work in the Hornets' favor that you've got one and done here. Yes, you're on this kind of losing streak, this slide, but all it takes is one. All it takes is a really good shooting night, and suddenly the Hornets are past the Pacers with an opportunity to get into that 8th seed. So, I mean, I think overall it's been a good move. I'm not totally sold on it yet, though, David. I want to see
I
how this
know.
plays out. I feel like that media, they've really glommed onto this and said, okay, this is an amazing idea, and I'm just not like ready to
Right.
go that far with it.
Well, it just happened to work out that this is the perfect season to try it. Obviously, I mean, that's kind of why they did it, but it gives, those two Hornets games, the Knicks and the Wizards were supposed to be played during the season. Now, because of COVID, through no fault of the Hornets, they ended up being a little bit penalized, playing those two games, those two teams at the end of the season as opposed to the middle of the season. They could have had an advantage then, I suppose, but you never know what happens. It's not like you just slot those two games in and the rest of the season goes accordingly. But I think that the Hornets, now they get a second shot, right? Like they got a shot to. They've had a lot of chances, Doug, over the last week. They've had chance after chance after chance after chance, and now maybe this season it feels like, well, things are so screwy that let's just give let's give another opportunity for folks to do right. I mean, the talks about this moving forward are going to be fascinating because you got to believe. I mean, the league was able to sell this. They're able to get sponsorship for this whole thing, as you mentioned. That's why it's national TV broadcast. The players, I don't think, are going to give up this thing about bitching about it, though. I mean, they are not in love with it, and that comes from the top down. Anytime you got LeBron talking about how it's stupid, now he loved it last year. Loved the idea of it last year when he was free and clear of
Yeah,
possibly
it's
being in the
weird.
play-in.
It's weird how that works, right? When you
Yeah,
love something until you actually have to take part in it, and you
because
can't.
he was going to be watching it, right? He was going to be a fan of it. He was talking about, I think it was Portland and maybe Memphis or whoever down in the bubble battle it out for those two spots. But you can't deny the interest. And I mean, at this day and age, trying to get eyes is as important as ever. They're going to have a tough time blocking this, I guess. I mean, I'm assuming you go back to collective bargaining and see what's what, but it feels like they're going to really push to keep something like this around.
Well, I think it prevents a hacking of the system, and I'm not saying that's what Los Angeles did. They had legitimate injuries to
Yeah.
LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and that's why they find themselves in the situation that they're in. But it does prevent teams from not taking the regular season very seriously, because you do have to get into those top 6 seeds in order
Hmm.
to not have this one and done situation. That's the thing that LeBron doesn't like. He doesn't like the fact that, hey, we're getting healthy. We have a legitimate shot to make a difference in these playoffs, but it could all be ruined one night against the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't have
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity. Now we don't make the quote unquote playoffs, even though I think the play-in are the playoffs. So that's what LeBron is obviously mad at, that he wants his opportunity to go 7 games. He feels like his Lakers team, if they're healthy, can beat any team in a 7-game series, and he doesn't like the fact that it's one and done.
Well, it did prevent tanking, though, I think. I mean, for the most part, unless you're the Clippers trying to avoid the Lakers, or unless you're Toronto. And even the Toronto, uh, I don't, they were out of it, but like all the way down to 10th over the last until the last week of the season. I think the main goal about this was to prevent the overall just flagrant tanking, and I think it did that. I mean, that's they kind of figured out how to traverse that and prevent folks from just completely throwing in the towel over the last couple of weeks of the season. I mean, of course, you still had teams up and down, players in and out, but for the most part, they were trying all the way up until the end.
Let's talk about where the Hornets are right now. We got to get to some maybe some shoe news. If nothing else, David can just explain what he's wearing right now and why. I've got to
Sure.
tell you my idea to save the All-Star, the skills challenge. It's an amazing idea. You're going to want to hear it.
Play-in tournament.
That's not the play-in tournament. To save the All-Star game
I
skills
know, a
challenge.
play-in tournament to the skills challenge.
Oh no, that's not. I don't want to do where like play-in tournament. That's one is enough. I'm still not sold on it, and I don't want another.
So you're not sold on it. So you don't want to see it come back. Just to jump back into this real quick, or you just want to see kind of how they may approach it going
how
forward.
it goes. I need to see how it goes this season, and I need to see how it goes when the pandemic is not messing everything up. I want to see how it affects scheduling at the end of next season. I want to see if it's actually exciting. People want to judge these things before they even happen. I need a couple of seasons to know, whether this thing is legitimate or whether it's just kind of randomizing. And ultimately, it's for the 8th and 7th seed, which are typically not seeds that are going to really make a difference in the playoffs anyway. So I don't know how much it matters. So I think that's a question in my mind.
In the overall grand scheme. Well, this season, of course, I guess with the Lakers. But yeah, I think if you've got a scenario in coming years where like 7 and 8 are like, 10 games better than 9 and 10, you know what I mean? Like it's not even close. Then I think people are gonna be like, this is silly. Like that's why you played the entire season to get these spots, and you're gonna have them go off against teams that didn't do nearly as well in a 1-game scenario. That kind of cheapens the slots there. So yeah, it'll be fascinating. But hey, I think for this season, the last 2 seasons really, right? Like the bubble between this, it's been insane, and they haven't done everything right. But I think overall, most people will appreciate the plan anyway.
Okay, so let's talk about where the Charlotte Hornets are right now. The good news is they are a little bit healthier than they were several weeks ago. They've got LaMelo Ball back. He seems to be okay, maybe not 100% on the wrist, but okay. Terry Rozier's back. Devontae's playing well. He's back. And the only significant player that they are still missing is Gordon Hayward, who has been out for quite a while. The good news is they are in the play-in tournament, so they are playing in postseason play. The bad news is they are on quite a slide. They've lost 5 in a row. They've only won 3 out of their last 10 games. And because of that, because of consecutive losses to the New York Knicks and the Washington Wizards, all they had to do was win one of those games, David. All they had to do was win one because they had tiebreakers over both the Wizards and the Pacers, and they couldn't win either. And so now they have to win 2 road games. Here's some really bad news. The Hornets on the season are 15-21 on the road. They had a even Steven record at home, 18-18, but they were 15-21 on the road. So they finished the season at 33-39. David, we can kind of track it back to the New York game. I feel like both of these games against New York and against Indiana, they were either in or significantly ahead at certain points. And both of these games were sort of blown opportunities for the Hornets. What went wrong?
Definitely in control for a good bit of those games, or at least in a position to take those games even late, right? But the fourth quarter problems really are killing them right now. For whatever reason, going back to, their last homestand, when they hit the fourth quarter, they just go completely cold, and stop trying to make easy buckets happen, kind of fall back on the three-pointers, the outside shooting, and of course, with no rebounding, if they're not hitting, then they're going to go into the bucket, or go into the trash, or not do well, I should say. So that's been the
The
struggle for
trash
me.
bucket, not the
Yeah, the
actual
trash
bucket.
bucket.
If it was going in the actual bucket,
Actual
then the
bucket, that
Hornets,
would be
then the
actually be
Hornets wouldn't have
good.
any problem.
Right. But I mean, that's been the big thing. But I mean, all right. So let's start with the Knicks game, because there was a big push from the Hornets in that third quarter. There was a group that brought them back in that game, highlighted by the return of Miles Bridges, which was much needed. He showed no ill effects from, quarantine, whatever. COVID kept him out for those 3 games, or no, not 3 games, more than that, couple weeks. But I wanted to jump into this because you mentioned it to me. Not playing LaMelo Ball down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's not new. I mean, it's been happening for a good portion of the season, and particularly when he came back, JB was still subbing him out. But like, to me, when you get down to these games where, let's face it, those were playoff games, the Knicks game and the Wizards games were more or less playoff games because, like you said, win one and you're basically in the 8th spot. I think you got to take every advantage you have. The Hornets don't have a lot of advantages over most teams, right? They don't have that special guy that's going to give them something that the other team has to think about constantly on every possession.
That's Gordon Hayward. That's the thing that they're missing. They're missing a player that it's really tough to scheme against.
Right. But I think LaMelo Ball also gives you, something else they've got to count on, or something else they've got to counter, right? He's the special player. He's the special player in their lineup. I think you've got to be able to play him. I think you have to play him down the stretch in deciding games. I mean, I don't think that's ever going to I don't think that can ever happen again to this point. This is the end of his rookie season. He's the guy you're going to be building around, if not now, then, next week, whenever the season's over. Like, he's got to be in these games in the deciding moments, I think, if nothing else, than to say, hey, this is what it's going to be like, LaMelo. You're going to have to figure out a way to either generate offense, get us going something here. He's also one of the only guys that can go by anybody and get to the basket with any regularity. So
right, everyone else on the team seems content to pass into somewhat open opportunities from 3, which aren't going in. Look,
right.
If you're JB, enjoy it while it lasts. Like, enjoy being able to bench LaMelo Ball in these situations.
It's over
because it's next season. It's got to be over. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, I understand that he's a rookie. I understand that that lineup, the particular lineup that they had with Devontae Graham, Bridges, Zeller, and PJ and Rozier, like, that lineup was doing well. They outscored the Knicks 32-26 in the third quarter, 18-15 in the fourth quarter. So there was something working there. But I would say a couple of things. One, I agree with you, David. LaMelo Ball is a game changer. He's somebody that can go and he can go and drive and do something else other than take a three-point shot.
On the defense,
pressure
right?
On the defense, and can find others for even more open opportunities. The second thing that I would say is that he rode the lineup too long. I mean, the guys looked tired in that overtime period, and New York just simply bodied them. I mean, Randall and really Noel too. I mean, Nerlens to me, just clutch rebounding, block shots in that late period in overtime.
It was a guy that was out there on the open market at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the Hornets total lack of a center, total lack of defense this season at the rim is a huge issue. And that's really fundamentally, I think, it's not just that the Hornets are not making shots. It's the fact that they can't defend anyone, so they actually have to make shots at a really good clip in order to just be in a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you
can't
keep
scoring.
The Hornets can't have an off-scoring night. An off-scoring night is a loss for the Charlotte Hornets team 9 times out of 10. I'm sure you could go back through the schedule and find a game in which they didn't shoot well and they won, but they're really rare, and they're going to become even more rare as opposing defenses ratchet up. I mean, that's what you're going to see against the Pacers tonight. The Pacers are going to lock it in on defense and try to take away any advantage that the Hornets have offensively, and they're going to be forced to make shots.
Yeah, and the Knicks are a great defensive team, right? I mean, of course, under Thibodeau, they're going to be good. That's been their calling card kind of this season, along with the emergence of Julius Randle. But I get it why Hornets fans are crushed and annoyed and feel like,
Honestly,
yeah,
I'm
watching
frustrated.
it's brutal.
That's the word. The word of this show is what we're seeing on the court right now is brutal. Like the way they lost the game against the Knicks in overtime, the way they lost against the Wizards after being up double digits, after looking like they were controlling that basketball game. And just watching, it's not one player. I mean, it was Bridges.
It's everybody.
I mean, we'll talk more about that Wizards game in just a second, but like
Yep.
it really is everybody. And it's not, we're saying, hey, we'd like to see LaMelo Ball more in these situations, but it's not as if, to be fair to JB, it's not as if LaMelo Ball is playing stellar offensive basketball and we're being denied that. Like he's not, since he's been back, David, and I know he hit a couple of threes and you threw it in my face, but he was 0 of 4 against the Knicks. Like he's not shooting as well.
He's not 100%.
I don't know if that's the wrist or not, but he's not shooting well.
No, did hit some free throws against the Wizards and in big time spots, and had a big time 3-pointer against them as well. But no, I don't think he's 100%. But I still think you've got to have your best players in. You got to have your game changers. You have to take a chance that some of that talent is going to rise to the top. And the frustrating thing about watching the Hornets, right, is it's literally like you mentioned it. I mean, the shots they're getting. It's not like they're bad shots. Like the ball movement is still there. They're getting wide open looks.
No, go back.
PJ
you can do it. You can go to the box scores and look at these shots that they're missing, and they're not entirely contested. Maybe you could make an argument. Oh, if you make a couple of more passes, maybe drive a little bit more, make the team. You got to make a team think that you're going to drive in order to get a little bit more space for your shooter. So maybe there's a little bit more space, but these are not like crazy bad jump shots that they're taking.
No, but they're just not. There's no one out there that's saying, all right, I'm going to get to the basket or I'm going to get fouled or both. I mean, that's exactly what Westbrook was doing. That's what freaking Ish Smith was doing. Beal, that was a crazy game. If they didn't take advantage of that game, that's totally on them. To get especially the slow start from Beal. But like that's what the Hornets are missing. That's what Hayward would have brought to the table. I know we're jumping around, but that Wizards game, you could see it coming. I mean, what Westbrook's going to do. He's going to get to his spot. He's going to get his weight shifted. He's going to get the call. And if he doesn't make it, he's going to go to the free throw line and convert. When the Hornets are going on these cold streaks, they're still shooting threes. Either it's a three or it's a drive or it's a, God forbid, a freaking catch and shoot travel. There's nobody calming down when these threes are not going in. If you had Hayward, you could throw it to him a little bit in the block. He's going to be able to get some contact in there. But when that lineup's on the floor, and it's not like, to your point, LaMelo is going to take someone off the dribble and throw it down over him, right? Like he's having a little trouble finishing now as well. He's going to get better with that. But at least it puts some pressure on the defense. And these guys just continue to fire up those threes. And when they're not going, there's no other way for them to generate any easy baskets. And they're not forcing the issue by getting some free throws going either. So it's just like you can see it coming. And until they hit again, it's like, well, I guess we're just going to keep throwing them up and see when they go in.
And we should make a distinction here on the free throw situation because it really is, I think, late in the game when they're not able to establish easy points. Because if you look
early on, early
on, they can get to the line. Because I mean, if you look,
they're being the aggressors.
Right. They were 22 of 24 from the free throw line against the Wizards in that 5-point loss. That's why, by the way, I think that's why these games aren't blowout losses for the Hornets, because they are able to generate some easy offense a little bit earlier in the game, though they got off to a slow defensive start against New York, allowing 36 points. But in that game, they were 18 of 24 from the line, so they missed a few, but they still got plenty of opportunities. So they're getting to the free throw line more than their opponent, and a lot of that. Well, Devontae Graham was 8 of 8 from the free throw line in that game against New York. He was absolutely stellar. I mean, so Bridges came off the bench in that game for 30 points, and then Devontae Graham for 25. He was amazing. And then, he got cold in the game against the Wizards. But so it is late in the game when the team seems to lock up offensively and get dunked on
Mhm.
defensively. So I
Mhm.
want to talk more about the Wizards game, and then we'll preview a little bit of what we expect to happen tonight against the Indiana Pacers in a moment. But let's take a few side roads here. Anything on shoes that you want to talk about in this episode? What are you wearing? What have you got any? What's the deal? What's the situation in the shoe game? Is it still madness out there in terms of pricing?
Oh, it's still crazy. That's funny you mentioned the pricing. There was a, Air Jordan what's called an Air Jordan KO, was released last week. This has some interesting history, actually. The KO stands for knockoff. So way back in the '80s,
Not knock
when
out, knock
knock
off.
knock off, not knock in, but knock off. And Nike put out this shoe basically to get ahead of companies producing not counterfeit, but like knockoffs, and said, "Here, we're going to do this on our own." It's a canvas version of like the Air Jordan 1, and it's come out a couple times since then. The last time it came out, they were sitting on shelves. You could find them for 100 under $100. I'm sure when they were originally produced, they were way under $100. But now, of course, they sold out instantly. There you go. There you have them. It actually looks like a nice little summer shoe. A little canvas, something you can wear casually. But this thing sold out instantly, and now it's going for, I don't know, $300. It's just insane. It's insanity.
Yay!
It's insanity. It's not leather. It's canvas. There's nothing super special about it. Of course, this colorway is always going to be popular. It's the Chicago Air Jordan 1 colorway, so it shouldn't surprise anyone. But it's just kind of silly at this point that that thing's going for what it is. The only other thing of interest last week was the Kobe Bryant Hall of Fame shoe that was put out in connection with Undefeated, which is a LA West Coast based streetwear sneaker store. Um, Anything Kobe right now, of course, is top of mind, especially because I think this is the second to last Kobe Nike shoe that they may ever do. That probably won't be the case, but as of right now, with the Bryant estate cutting ties with Nike, so that was released last week. A nice little golden colorway. I don't know if we'll see.
With the
Perhaps Malik
black, kind of
Monk will put that
the
on,
black
like
mamba
Mamba
notes
reptilian
here.
skin on there. So yeah. Um,
Reptilian skin.
I thought
You're really
MJ
the bad
may,
guy.
maybe he would wear this on stage when he presented Kobe into the Hall of Fame, which I thought he was going to speak. I felt like people were led to believe he was going to say a few words up there, but the presenters don't really present. I don't know if you watched any of the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. They just kind of stand up there with the inductees and welcome them in to the fold. But yeah,
Well, and honestly, I mean, I think all of us would have wanted to see MJ speak because those opportunities are hard to come by, and so that's
yeah,
always a cool thing. But how is he going to top what
his
he said at the Jersey
right
retirement
or the funeral,
or the funeral,
the memorial,
the memorial? Yes, thank
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you. How is he going to top that?
No, that's probably what they wanted to avoid, it being another memorial as much as they could, I guess. But she did a great job. She did a good job. And MJ actually inducted two people. I don't know if you noticed that. Kim Mulkey, I guess, is that
Oh,
the
cool.
Baylor coach that just went from Baylor to LSU. He welcomed her in because they both played in the 1984 Olympics. So there you go.
Connections. Okay, got shoes out of the way. I want to talk about my idea to save the skills challenge. It's not great timing because we're in postseason play, but this came up in a conversation I had with some people from Locked On. By the way, I just produced a video for Locked On NBA's YouTube channel. They have a new YouTube channel. I'll post the link in the show notes because it's new, so you can't. If you try to Google Locked On NBA YouTube, a lot of other stuff comes up. But this channel will soon rank on Google. Don't you worry about it. And I'll put the link in the show notes. But I just produced a video for Locked On NBA called The 5 Things You Need to Know About LaMelo Ball's Rookie Season.
Ooh.
You can check that out on YouTube. But I was having a conversation with some people from Locked On, and we were talking about ways to save the All-Star weekend. We're always trying to save it, I feel like, David,
Sure.
right? Like
It's always in danger.
it is, but it keeps happening, and yet we all try to save it. So my idea for the skills challenge is the floor is lava. What do you think about that?
I like this.
And I'm not talking about this game show that's on some
Netflix.
network now.
It's on Netflix.
It's on. Oh, sorry, it's not on a network. It's on a streaming service, Netflix. I'm not talking about this fake floor is lava nonsense. I'm saying what the All-Star Game Skills Challenge needs is actual mortal danger. That's what it needs. It needs
actual molten hot lava on the floor.
We need to find it. I'm sure it's easy to find. We get it. And we have it sponsored. Somebody could sponsor the lava, maybe like a hot wing sauce could sponsor the lava. But we need the threat. I don't know. Do you remember the movie? I think it was called Volcano, starring Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes, of course. There was a competing one. Remember when you just have two? There was Dante's Inferno.
Right.
There was Dante's Inferno, I think, and Volcano.
It was just like Deep Impact and Armageddon.
Exactly.
These things always had to come in pairs. No, this one, I'll look it up. It was called Volcano, I believe, and it starred Tommy Lee Jones. But there's a scene in that movie where somebody has to like jump from a subway car to be saved. Do you remember the scene?
Subways near the volcano. Steer clear.
Do you remember the scene?
I don't know if I've ever seen this movie actually.
Oh my gosh, you have to watch Volcano, okay? So I'll spoil it for you. This scene, this person has to jump from the subway car to be saved, and they jump, but they don't make it, and they're not even close, and they just sink into the volcano, into the lava, and die. It's both hilarious and brutal, and you're like, why did they? It's a decision that I'm not sure movies these days would make. By the way, the poster for Volcano, a couple of the taglines were, "It's hotter than hell," and "The coast is toast."
That's a good one.
Volcano,
that's a good one.
Starring Tommy Lee Jones. The coast is toast. But anyway, so that's what I bring that up to say that's what the skills challenge needs. It needs Domantas Sabonis trying to avoid being consumed by hot magma.
What's going to be lava? The entire floor, or just going to have pockets?
No, you'll have sections of the floor that you have to avoid. I see it as like it's like a lane of court that sort of you have to navigate the lava.
Okay.
Right? So like, yes, there is, and maybe there are sections that are taken out. So you have to jump, you have to jump over a certain section. It's kind of like Wipeout. Have you ever seen Wipeout?
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what The Floor is Lava, the game show, is. It's like it's kind of like Wipeout, but just with the floor, the rest of the floor is lava. The tabletops will shake enough. But the thing that I cringe when I watch The Floor is Lava, it has nothing to do with the lava, because I'm assuming, I don't think they use real lava on that show. Because people fall into it. It's when these people are jumping from like,
you know what you signed up for,
6 or 7 feet away, and they crash their shin on the corner of what looks like, a stone corner. Now, I think it's all foam, but at some point there's got to be something, hard and rigid that's going right into their shin bone, and it looks like it hurts every single time. That's the tough part of watching that for me, but so I'd want to avoid that if you want to bring in the lava.
Well, yeah, you would want to, because at that point you're going to be less concerned with your shin and more concerned with the fact that your flesh is burning off.
Right.
Okay.
That'd be tough.
So that's my idea. I'm going to run it up the chain, get it to the old Silvsky. Adam, what's going on? I got an idea for you.
Throw it into the bargaining agreement.
What are your ideas for putting NBA players in mortal danger? Let us know on Twitter at Doug Branson LOH or at David B. Walker. Okay, preview time. Let's talk about what the Hornets are up against. They're facing off against the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers have were one game better than the Charlotte Hornets this season at 34-38. Interestingly, David, I mentioned at the top of the show that the Hornets are not a great team away, 15-21. The Pacers are not a great team at home, and you'll probably I was just about to say you'll hear Eric Collins mention this, but you won't because Bally Sports not broadcasting this.
What a season!
Hear the TNT.
What a run for Bally's, by the way. God Almighty,
tough. 13-23 at home. The Indiana Pacers, they were a much better road team. You don't see that very often. In fact, I'm going to do a little quick scan, and I don't know if there was really another team this season. The Magic got close. They were only one game better at home. But yeah, I can't find another team. The Bulls. The Bulls were 16-20 away, 15-21, but that's only a game. I mean, this is a significant difference. The Pacers at the Fieldhouse were not very good. So the Hornets do have, I guess, that sort of not really in their favor, just sort of it's what's going to give there. But the Pacers, the Hornets took 2 of 3 games from the Pacers. They lost the first game. I think they lost that one big by 10, 116-106. Domantas Sabonis had 22 points, 11 boards, 10 assists, the old trip dub. But then on January 29th, 2 days later, January 27th, the first game, the Hornets lost by 10. 2 days later, on January 29th, the Hornets got a win, 108-105. Domantas Sabonis had another big game, 22 points, 11 boards, and 6 assists. Malcolm Brogdon also added 21 points in that game, but Devontae Graham had 14 points and 10 rebounds, a rare double-double for Devontae Graham. P.J. Washington led the way with 19 points and 9 rebounds. They really hung on for that win, though, David. And then in the final game, they didn't face the Pacers again until April 2nd. And if you remember that game, they blew the Pacers out of the water, 114-97. Those were better times for the Hornets. They were playing particularly well during that.
That was Indianapolis, right?
That was at Indianapolis, yep.
Was that the last Gordon Hayward game?
I think that might have been the one where he got injured.
Yeah.
So that was the last time we saw Gordon Hayward, and that's the only game, I didn't mention this, that April 2nd game, the only one at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. The other two, the win, the loss, earlier in January, were both in Charlotte. So you do have a moment here where they beat them in Indiana. So whatever stock you put into that.
They'll take all they can get.
The real key here, David, though, is Domantas Sabonis. The Hornets don't do well with bigs. They don't do well with physical bigs. They don't do well with skilled bigs. They really don't do well with any bigs. And Domantas Sabonis did not play well in that win for Charlotte on April 2nd. So I think the focus defensively for the Hornets has to pretty much be exclusively on Sabonis and trying to limit what he can do.
God, at what point do they just say, all right, your center's going to score 50 points tonight. We're just going to let the centers go. We're not going to try and stop anything at the rim. We're just going to make everyone else beat us. Because, I mean, let's run down the list real quick, Doug, of recent centers that have been able to feast upon the Hornets. Start with the most recent one, Robin Lopez.
Oh, yeah.
Looked amazing.
Off the bench, too. I mean, it's not just like starting.
No.
I mean,
no.
Yeah, Robin Lopez, if you want to point to one player in that Wizards game that made the difference, it was Robin Lopez. They just could not stop him late in that game.
They have nothing. They have to play Cody Zeller. I mean, he's going to play some anyway, but they have to play him when they've got a big guy out there like him. He's got a mismatch no matter who is on him. So yeah, that was a disaster. Who else do we have? I mean, you go back to Jackson Hayes. I could throw Daniel Tice at you.
Yeah, Randall and
talk about James Johnson, Randall, of course. So it's just like every night in. I don't know if I'm playing against the Hornets. I'm damn sure playing a big lineup. I mean, that's they have no answer for it.
Yeah, I mean they're forced to play limited minutes to Bismack Biyombo and then go with kind of the smaller lineup with PJ at center, but just defensively, PJ ain't it. and
No.
they've got to find some answers there in the offseason. And so I don't. What kind of chances do you give the Charlotte Hornets against the Indiana Pacers?
Oh, great shot. I think they're gonna win. No, I mean, that's the thing of this group. I
Honestly,
mean, the
do too.
Hornets
Like
can beat
you're kind of joking, but I
well, the Hornets
honestly
can
think
beat
that they're
any
going
of
to win
these
this game.
teams. It wouldn't I certainly hope they do win this game. But I have a hard time getting away from this. If they shoot well, then they have a chance, but they're gonna have to shoot well the duration of the game because to your point, these leads they build up are never safe because they can't put possessions together really where they're forcing consecutive stops and getting baskets. And then when the other team starts to go on a run, if they're not countering that with their own offense, which they're having trouble doing for 4 quarters, then they're always going to let the team back in the game.
It's such an interesting reversal from earlier in the season when they got leads and held them, or were making monster comebacks to win games and putting them
Mhm.
away.
Yeah.
So okay,
Have they faced Levert? Have they faced the Pacers with Levert? Because didn't he was out till pretty recently. I don't think he played in that last April
he
game, did
did. He
he?
played in the last April
He
game.
did.
He had
Okay.
16 points, 5
Okay.
assists. But they'll face off against Levert again.
But these
And
look, the Pacers look, I looked at the injury report today. Brogdon's been out for a while. He'll
yep,
probably try to go. I mean, Sabonis is banged up. I would imagine he'll definitely go. Levert's good to go. I would expect all of their big guns to play, but they have been a little bit banged up. So who knows?
you wanted to talk about some of the vitriol that's been sent Gordon Hayward's way. I don't really pay much attention to the socials anymore, but
Oh God,
you got
I
the
need to
pulse
get
of
on board with that.
you got the pulse of the
Well,
social going on, and you're saying a lot of people mad at Gordon Hayward for not playing. Is this a little
people
bit
are
of like Nick
frustrated.
Batum again?
Oh my gosh, I hope it's not that bad to that level, but yeah, I mean, people are frustrated. People are mad at JB, saying he might be on the hot seat, which I just
That's
think is outrageous, which is
the coast
insane.
is toast.
Um,
The
but yeah,
coach is toast.
I mean, Hayward, he's getting some shade because he hasn't played in quite some time. And the weird thing about these injuries to me is like it's not like he's re-injured his the same thing over and over again. I mean, he had the one bad injury, of course, when he was with the
Right.
Celtics.
Broken
But
leg.
like he came back. He probably shouldn't have come back in the bubble last year to try and help the Celtics, but he did. He did what he could. I don't think he would go through that again, especially right now in the playing game. But it's unfortunate. But yeah, he's getting a lot of hate because he's getting a lot of money, and we haven't seen him in quite some time. I mean, you almost forget he was on the team, and you definitely forget that he was, on the outskirts of All-Star consideration in the beginning of the season. It was really a big piece for what the Hornets were doing. Was their major acquisition, and like we've said, is the big piece they're missing, that extra little toy to play with when their outside shooting is not working.
Yeah, and there was some interest. He was just starting, I feel like, to get integrated with LaMelo Ball. Like I
Hmm.
think when LaMelo first came in, there was some and was getting significant minutes. I think there was some kind of interesting things happening with Gordon being a little bit quiet or taking a back seat. And then I feel like just as he got injured, they were starting to figure that out. And it'll be a
Hmm.
big what if from this season. Like I don't. I mean, it's easy to say this now, David, but I really feel like the Hornets were a top 6 seed. I mean, I feel like they were where the Knicks are right now if Gordon Hayward doesn't get injured. Even with the LaMelo injury, I really feel like
Yeah.
Gordon was a piece that is exactly what they've been missing offensively right now and would have saved them, I think 6 to 8 games,
Yeah.
which would have been
But
enough.
but honestly, we knew this. I mean, you kind of knew that. Like this would be a great signing if he could stay healthy for the entire time. This will be the piece that they're missing if he can play a good portion of the season. But what do you want him to do? Okay, do you want him
Yeah.
to not
And they
take a
weren't look,
shot and
they
bring in
weren't
a
going to
guy?
be, you know,
I mean, it
they,
came out of
they,
the blue anyway. Remember
right.
when
I
the
mean,
signing
they weren't
happened?
going to be a legitimate threat in the playoffs. So, if he
Right.
comes back next season, he's healthy and LaMelo stays healthy and Terry plays well. I mean, then you've got to, I think this team could build something that could win maybe a series or two.
Yeah. But
So
I think you have to look at what they were when they were healthy, and that was definitely the most fun team in the NBA. It's still not a complete team, Doug. We've talked about it this week. This team was a very fun team, especially when they had all their pieces.
Mm-hmm.
That was still significantly flawed, mostly in the center position and being able to stop anyone down low. And that's just how it was going to be for the duration of this season. Probably a little bit by design, figure it out this off season. Don't leverage yourself, with another bad contract just to have an additional body in the middle. So, a lot of this was predetermined. And, for the most part, has worked out. They said it over and over again. Our buddies on Locked On Hornets, Nada and Walker, this season was a success. And I still think you have to look at it that way. Doesn't mean you can't be frustrated. Doesn't mean it's not annoying when you see them take a nosedive in the last 2 weeks of the season like this. But, that's where they are. And that was pretty much by design.
All right, prediction time as we wrap this thing up. David, what happens not only against the Pacers, but we won't be back again until the play-in is over. So what do you think?
I'll tell you what, Doug. Not only do I believe they're going to win, I've put my money where my mouth is.
Did you bet online.ag?
No, and this is not really putting my money where my mouth is because Ticketmaster's already told me they're refunding me for the play-in game, which is not going to happen. But I went ahead and doubled down on that and bought some tickets to the Eastern quarterfinals, game 1 versus Philadelphia. See you in a week or so. I don't know when that game would be. Yeah.
I'm not with you. I'm glad you have the faith, but I think that I really
plenty
do
good seats available, by the way, Doug, if you want to look into.
Just come on down to Charlotte for a week. We are all double vaccinated here now, so we could definitely make that happen. You know what? All right, I'll tell you. If the Hornets, we'll find a way to get to Charlotte if Hornets end up in the 8th.
Okay,
and we'll do.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking.
All right, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm predicting that they beat the Pacers, but that they lose to the winner of Washington and the Celtics. They fall 1 game short of the 8th seed, which would just honestly be perfect.
That'd be poetic,
where the Hornets live, but I don't think they'll live there much longer with LaMelo Ball as long as JB decide. That's one thing I forgot to mention on the LaMelo Ball thing. What disappoints me about him not playing late in these games is that this feels like a perfect opportunity to get him that experience, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. Over the last week or so.
What are they got? I mean, what are they going to lose? I mean, they're already losing. Like, let's change up the game. So I hope if that situation makes itself available against the Pacers, that JB will unleash LaMelo late in these games. I would be happy to see it. Again, even if they lose the ball game, I would be happy to see LaMelo get that opportunity. Okay, so that's that. I think they lose. And honestly, I want to see the Hornets go as far as they can possibly go. I think that experience always matters. It's always great for the team. But I think with the injury to LaMelo, it's obviously still affecting him. With Gordon's situation, I honestly feel like winning 1 would be great, and then not making the playoffs would also be great. I just feel like this season needs to mercifully come to an end for the Charlotte Hornets.
Oof.
Let them get healed up. Let them get a full off season, and let's run this ish back.
Well, yeah, and especially if you think about the bloodletting that would be a first-round matchup with Joel Embiid and the Sixers. I mean, good.
Add another
God.
4-0 sweep to the record books.
Yeah. And then you get thrown back into the lottery, right? And at this point, I think I'm ready for the league to rig LaMelo to get another top 2, top 3 draft pick and pair him with somebody like that coming out of college.
The Hornets play, I'm telling you what, if the Hornets play the Sixers, in the first round, you're going to see the first player in NBA history to average 60 points in a series.
I don't think he'd play enough, to be honest. I think it'd be out of reach.
You're probably right. Or maybe Philly just lets him go.
And that's the upside. That's the upside, people. You're getting postseason basketball, but you may well get an entrance into the lottery as well.
Such a good point. Such a good
the best
point.
of both worlds.
Even if they get bounced out by the Pacers, it's not going to be embarrassing.
No.
If they win 1 against the Pacers and get bounced by Boston or Washington, that's not going to be embarrassing. If they make it, and they get 4-0 shellacked by the Sixers.
You want
That's
to talk
going
an
to be
NBA TV
embarrassing.
game? I
Yeah.
guess that would be NBA TV game. Would they put the number 1 seed?
No.
Of the
No. Well, I don't know. I feel like the Bucks got
well,
an
not with
NBA
LaMelo, right?
maybe, but I feel like the Bucks got
Maybe
an NBA TV game
they
last year
could.
because it's still
Bucks
1-8. It's still
Bucks
1-8.
Magic, that classic.
Yeah, it's
That's the
still
magic, the
1-8.
Steve Clifford slot.
You're right.
Yeah.
There is a LaMelo factor though that could keep them. Okay.
Now let me ask you this real quick.
Okay.
Spinning it forward, let's say they do get the win tonight. Better shot against the Celtics or the Wizards? I mean, the Celtics can't wait to get the season over with, and the Wizards.
I would say better chance against the Wizards. I mean,
Me too,
they
still.
blew that game against the Wizards, but they had control of that game. I think they could beat the Wizards any given night. Boston has the blowout potential. They've shown the ability. I mean, but they're missing some pieces. I mean, it would really be an interesting game. But I think Boston has the potential because they still have enough talent to run you off the floor. So I think I'm going to give the edge to Washington.
Yeah, I think so too.
They were
I don't
just
think
up
anybody's
like 17 on them at one point in that game. So
Jeez. Well,
anyway,
we'll see.
okay. I'm excited though. I'm excited for tonight.
can't wait.
You can follow us on Twitter at Doug Branson LOH, at David B. Walker, and we'll be live tweeting the game. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Hornets pod. Watch us on YouTube. Check us out in podcast land. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast. For David, I'm Doug. We're making it up as we go along, but it's only going to get better next season, just like the Hornets. That's how I feel. Go Hornets. Go America. Let's swarm Charlotte.